Today I'm going to help you increase your slow summer eBay sales with 5 tips, actually 6. I have a bonus tip at the end, and these tips are designed to help you increase sluggish sales that might be happening to you. So without any further ado, let's go. So it's summertime, and for eBay sellers, this usually means slower eBay sales. And I say usually because this year is a little different. Of course, with the pandemic, we have a lot more people that are at home, and a lot of people shop when they're at home, kind of kill time, that sort of thing. So a lot of eBay sellers are not reporting the same level of drop-offs in sales that they were reporting in years past. I can say for myself, it's a little bit busier for me, but there's a couple factors that I'm dealing with. First of all, I haven't bought new inventory in the last, say, month since my liquidation video that I did. And I've already gone through that pallet, and now I'm dealing with a lot of us call our death pile. And the reason why I'm not buying new inventory right now is because I'm planning on doing a move later this month. I just want to get through and sell as much of the death pile stuff as I can. But, you know, those items in that pile are death pile items for a reason. They're not the most sought after items. So for me, part of my slow sales can be attributed to the fact that I'm working with that sort of inventory. There is some value there, but it's not as in demand as the stuff that I've already sold. And so I'm looking for creative ways to increase my sales because I'm working with items that I normally wouldn't be spending my time listing. So I want to give you 5 tips that you can use, actually 6 tips. There's going to be a bonus tip at the end that I sort of just stumbled onto yesterday, and so I wanted to talk to you about that. So let's go ahead and get started with that. The first tip is to make sure your prices are in line with the sold listings based on the condition that you're selling the item for. So as I mentioned before in many videos, I sell liquidation, customer return liquidation items. I get items that are anywhere from brand new to used to just unsellable. And so, of course, when I'm dealing with the unsellable items, if I'm dealing with something for parts or repair, I list that according to that category. But usually it's used or open boxed in very good condition, or sometimes open boxed in brand new condition, or just brand new. And so if I have 4 of the same item, but all in different conditions, I'm not going to sell each item at the same price. It just wouldn't make sense. I wouldn't sell my brand new item at the same price as my used item. And that's sort of how it works on eBay. You need to look up your sold listings, and in that listing, you're going to see whether or not that's a new item, used item, open boxed, etc. And when you're looking to look for comparables for the item that you have to see how much you should price it as, you want to look, if you have an open boxed item, look for open boxed, and just kind of get an idea of what the sales have been for that item. If you have a used item, you're not going to use new to base your pricing, okay? Because a lot of people will buy that $100 item new if they can get it over your used item. So you're going to have to bring your price down if it's used condition. And I only mention this, it seems obvious, but I only mention this because when I do my research, I see a lot of people making that mistake. And you know, the item's sitting there waiting to be sold, but they want too much for it. And so on the flip side, I've actually, you know, done some research where people have listed an item and it's brand new and they've listed it for the used price. Of course, they sold it fast, but they didn't make as much money as they could have if they did their proper research. So that's the number 1 tip. Make sure you're using the sold filter on the left-hand side when you're doing a search in eBay, and it'll come up with green pricing. That'll tell you that you're looking at the solds. And do your research before you list your item so you have an idea of what you can get for that item before listing it. The next tip is to use your promoted listings. Now, a lot of people are sort of up in the air about promoted listings. Some people like to use it, some people are against it. I sort of have a strategy where I'll list my item, and after a couple days, if the item has not sold, I'll go in and put 1% as my promoted listing. And what I've found is that it allows your item to show up a little higher in the search rankings, and sometimes I've noticed that if you do not have promoted listings, you actually don't show up in all searches. You might show up in most searches, but not in all searches. I've done some research when they made the change many months back with promoted listings, and I found that if I didn't have an item promoted, it was less likely to be seen. And your customer's not going to scroll down 3 or 4 pages of results. You might be buried down there. And so promoted listings are good for if you're dealing with a lot of competition. Let's say you have an Apple product, for instance, that you're selling, and you have hundreds of Apple products of the same model that's you're competing against. It is going to help you to promote the item. Now, if you have a one-off item, a collectible, or something that is, you may only have a few competitors, it's not as important to use promoted listings. Your price now becomes a little bit more important. If you're up against 3 or 4 people, a better price should solve that issue, just sort of undercut them if you can afford it, if your cost, figuring your eBay fees, your item cost, and your shipping. If that allows you to do that, then it's something that you should look into. But promoted listings are really useful when you're dealing with a lot of competition. So sort of look at your items, and that's another way that you can help sort of get your sales going. Something that I just sort of came across a couple months ago, and just looking for creative ways to improve my sales, is the markdown sale feature. And that's under marketing, promotions, and then there's on the tab there on the left, it'll say markdown sale. And what you do is you create a sale. It could be 10%, 15% off, and you can select the items you want to be included in that sale. You can even name the sale, right? But what happens is, by actually creating a sale, you are now going to be ranked higher in specific searches where your buyer is looking for, they click on that discount option when they're filtering the search. And so you definitely want to make sure that your item is going to be seen in most, if not all, searches. So it's important that if you can afford to offer a discount, 10 to 15% off of your item, then that's something you should look into doing. Another tactic people use is they tend to bring up their prices by 10%, and then they use that 10% markdown. So essentially you're offering the same price, but you're telling that customer who's looking for a deal that it'll show up in their search when they are searching for that particular item. So that's something to consider. My next tip sort of is working in line with eBay's algorithm, in that if any of you have used Poshmark, from what I understand, it's a thing where you share items, you share other people's items on Poshmark, and that will boost your own sales in your closet, okay? And so with eBay, I believe, and I'm a strong believer, that they are constantly tweaking that algorithm, and I'm sure it's in line with the way Amazon works, the way Poshmark works. If you're not changing in this business, you're losing. And so I'm certain that the algorithm is being tweaked constantly. And so one thing that I know works for me is if you go in and you update one listing out of your store for every 25 items you have listed. So if you have 200 items listed, you're going to go in every day and you're going to update 8 items. Now, you want to go in and look at your pricing. You want to make sure your pricing is competitive, and you might have an item that's been in your store for a month, maybe 2 months, and at the time you put that pricing in there as the lowest possible price. Maybe you undercut your competitor, but since then you've had new listings, people have undercut your price, and so it's a good habit to get in to constantly check your current listings to make sure that you're priced accordingly, okay? And by doing this once a day for every 25 listings, it will help the algorithm boost your sales by putting you higher into the search rank. And you know, there's been days that I haven't done this, and I noticed like the following day my sales weren't as good. Maybe it's just a coincidence, but because I've noticed a difference, this is something that I do all the time. My fifth tip to you is dealing with item specifics, okay? And the reason why item specifics is really important, and I'm not sure a lot of people even maybe think on this level, from what I understand, there's more people buying on their cell phone and tablet than ever before, and not so much sitting behind a computer screen in their office or home. And when we put our descriptions in an eBay listing, those folks who are looking at their cell phone or their tablet have to really dig just to see them. It's just going to show you item specifics for the most part for those buyers. So if you're neglecting to put item specifics into your listings, your customer's working with very limited information, and they may be unsure that your item is going to be what they're looking for. So it's very important, and you're talking about a lot of details, and you may not have the answer for these things. The way you find a lot of the item specifics, if you're unsure, is, and this is what I do, it saves me a lot of time because I deal with a lot of one-off items that come in my pallets that I've never seen before. And so what you do is you go and do that search for that particular item, and I like to look at the solds again, and I'll click on a listing for an item that's sold, and I will go down and I will copy the item specifics from that listing. Item specifics from one seller to the next is not always the same. You want to make sure that you're using the best piece of information or data for that particular item. So like, for instance, color, it could be black. Okay, you put black there. But if it's a different color, you want to make sure that you put the appropriate color. You want to put manufacturer's color. It might be a different name for that color. So you might put blue for the color, but it might be, navy blue for the manufacturer's color. And so you want to make sure, it may sound silly, it may sound unnecessary, but the more pieces of information you can fill into those item specifics, it's going to help that buyer make a more informed decision when they're using their tablet or cell phone. And as a bonus to that, your item has a better chance of showing up in a Google search. So if someone's not even considering eBay and they're looking for, a certain item, they're going to put that item into a Google search. And if you have your item specifics filled out better than your competition, you have a better chance of showing up in that Google search, which will then allow that customer to be redirected to your listing. So it's very, very important. And I think we overlook that, the technology and the fact that people use their cell phone and their tablets more often. And, I wonder a lot of times why customers don't read the listings. It's because it's so hard when you're dealing with your cell phone or your tablet just to get into that description. You have to be looking for a description just to get to that disclaimer you might put into your listing. And so it's very important that if you have something to say to a customer, there is a option for you to put a customized item detail that they can see. You want to use that as well. But definitely your item specifics are very important, that you make sure that you fill out as much information for every listing that you have. So for those of you who are still watching, thank you. I do have a bonus tip for you, but before I give you the bonus tip, please be sure to like if you feel like this content is helping you, giving you some ideas. And please consider subscribing to my channel because every 3-4 days I'm putting out a video designed to help eBay sellers like myself improve, because I'm learning and picking up new things all the time, such as this bonus tip that I'm going to give you here. So this bonus tip is something that I stumbled upon on Monday. I noticed that over the weekend that my sales were a lot lower than normal. Between Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I only had about 15 sales when I normally have around 30. Okay. Monday evening, I had 0, and that sort of concerned me. So that night, I started looking around my account and went into my overview screen, and that's the screen where it shows you how many items you have to ship out, how many unanswered messages you have waiting for you, how many returns or return issues you have to deal with. And underneath that, it shows listings eligible for best offer. And so I decided to click on that. And when I did, it showed a list of items. It was about 45 items. And I decided to go in. These are all the items that someone has decided to watch your item. So I decided to go in and I did a best offer. You know, I calculated about 5 to 10%. I think the minimum is 5%. But some were already priced pretty good and I didn't want to go much lower. So I went through and I put a little generic message on there stating something to the effect of, this is your chance to get a great deal on this item. It's going out to a limited number of people, act now, that type of thing. And I spent about a half an hour, it didn't take very long, a half an hour doing that. So I went to bed and got up the next morning and I woke up to 10 sales. And so I did some research and I think only one of those sales was due to a best offer. And these were items, there's some items in there that I sold that, you know, I've been sitting on for months, and I just finally sold them. And it just kind of struck me funny. Prior to doing this video, I did some research, and over the weekend, if we're dealing with Friday, well, let's say Saturday, Sunday, Monday are the dates that I looked at. I had, I believe, 112,000 impressions. Well, on Tuesday and Wednesday, I had the same number of impressions as compared to the weekend. Now, usually for me, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are busier than during the week. So I think that is a direct correlation with playing the eBay game. I think this is part of their algorithm, and I really think that you want to make sure that when you log in and you go to your overview screen, that everything is handled. Okay, so of course you want to do your shipping every day. You want to make sure your messages are answered every day, and you really want to answer your messages as quickly as possible. You know, any return issues you want to make sure you've dealt with. Okay, either approving a return or processing a return if you get the item back. And don't ignore any other information. If it says it recommends listings for best offer, go ahead and go through them. And, you know, if that means you're going to have to jack up your price a little bit just so you can do a best offer, you know, go for it. But for me, I'm trying to sell my stuff. I have enough padding in between my costs for shipping, eBay fees, and the cost of the item. I have some room where I can go down 5%, okay? If it means that I'm playing the game, eBay's algorithm, to trigger sales, that's what I'm gonna do. And so hopefully any of these tips have helped you, and I know they've helped me. But if maybe you're doing fine, maybe you don't need to spend the time to do these things. Maybe one of these tips will actually help you increase your sales even more. And that's what we're here for. We're trying to sell as many of these items as we can. So give it a shot and post your comments down below. Let me know how these tips are working for you. If you have some tips that I haven't mentioned, some things that you do that you've noticed work for you, please share down below. We're all trying to learn here, and I think any information you can provide would not only help me, but other people as well. So thank you again for watching my video, and until next time, have a great rest of your day.